So brave is not always big. Brave is very often small, and sometimes brave is actually a deep breath and refusal to panic. Hello, and welcome. I'm Pawnee, your host. Welcome to the Yes, You Are Brave podcast. Let's jump in. Let's jump into this beautiful month of May and talk brave. So, welcome. I'm excited that you are here, and I'm excited to have this conversation with you today. We are starting into the month of May, and our theme for this month is going to be presence and purpose. And today I want to talk about how sometimes courage is just a deep breath and a refusal to panic. And I want to explore this a little bit because I feel like sometimes we tend to panic, right? We tend to panic. We tend to freak out. Things aren't going the way that we want them to. And so we just jump straight to the catastrophe mindset, and we panic, and then we can't actually make anything happen. So oftentimes, I think courage and bravery is a lot smaller than we sometimes make it seem. Sometimes it really is just taking a deep breath so that we can give ourselves a minute to not freak out. Or sometimes, we will talk about this in a minute, we give ourselves a time limit to freak out, and then we get to finding a solution. So let's jump in. Let's talk about it. Talk about how do we not panic? How do we keep calm when we feel like everything is falling apart? Now, there are lots of things and lots of ways and lots of tools to do this. And I think that this is one of those things that is very, very easy to do. The world is kind of in a crazy place right now, and it is very easy to get overwhelmed and feel like everything is falling apart. Then something happens in your specific life, in your personal world, and then it feels like everything is falling apart. Okay, the first thing that I want you to remember, the most important thing that goes along with this, is your body cannot tell the difference between the levels of danger. Okay, we have to remember, and this is something that has been super helpful to me as I've learned more about it, is that our brains are basically just designed to keep us alive. That is their goal. It's not to make us happy or make us successful. All of those things that we place importance on, our brain, most of the function of our brain is just to keep us alive. And when we see something and we decide it's dangerous, our brain and our body can't really tell the difference if it's really dangerous or if it's just a little bit dangerous, right? Sometimes the threat is very, very real, and the threat is very, very immediate, an actual danger. And sometimes it is just how we feel. The other day was a friend of ours came and sat with us in church, and she said, my nervous system feels like it's being chased by bears for no reason. So, and I felt that, right? It was one of those, like, I felt so seen in that moment because I was fine. But I've had moments like that where for no reason, I feel like I'm being chased by bears. And when we take deep breaths, and I know people are always like, oh, you take a deep breath. And especially if you ever try to have like a kid do this or a teenager, they think you're just crazy and that's not going to help anything. Da, 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 da. But the deep breath is going to signal safety, right? It says we're safe when we take the deep breath, the slow breaths. It tells our brain that we're okay, tells our body that we're okay. And it allows us to switch from a survival mode to a thinking mode. And those are two different parts of our brain. And when we can realize that those are two different parts of our brain, the part of our brain that's just trying to survive, and then the part of our brain that is actually thinking, reasoning, those are different parts. They don't operate at the same time. It gives us, like I said, it gives us time to switch. And it gives us time to stop that flood of panic, that flood of whatever's going on, and to an adrenaline, and be able to think a little bit more clearly. And I think this is also important. Like people want to be like, oh, deep breathing isn't going to solve my problems. But here's the other thing. Your body cannot function without air. No matter what you think or what you're doing, your body needs certain things to function. Air being at the top of that list. You can live for only a matter of minutes without air. You can live for a matter of days without water. You can live for a matter of weeks without food. But air, it's just a couple of minutes. Your body cannot function without the air that it needs. So when we're not breathing deep, when we're not getting the oxygen that we need, we can't think, we can't function like we're supposed to. And as somebody who, for most of my life, has struggled with a form of asthma, I've had those times where it's really hard not to panic because my body I'm not breathing the way that I should. So taking the deep breaths, it does solve lots of problems. Gives you that moment to not panic, to not freak out. I also wanted to, so my niece was born in the middle of a pandemic. She was born in 2020 and right as everything was shutting down. So her her first couple of years of life were a bit chaotic, to say the least, right? Just in general, the world was still in chaos. And I lived with them up until I got married a couple of years ago, one way or another. And one of the things that I found myself with my niece was teaching her how to take deep breaths. You know, she'd come and she'd be hurt or she'd be upset, and I'd let her cry for a minute, right? We'd let her have a minute. And then I'd be like, okay, let's take some deep breaths. I wouldn't try to get her to tell me what was wrong. I just let her cry for a minute, have her take a couple of then I let her take a couple of deep breaths, and then she could tell me what was wrong and things like that. And it was some of those things like, I thought I was teaching it for her, right? But honestly, most of the time it was for me just as much, if not more than it was for her, because it gave me a moment, right? To be able to figure out, okay, where am I? Me be calm. Let me get things together, and then I can handle whatever's going on with her. A lot of times it was just simple little bumps and bruises and things that kids get because they're kids. But teaching her how to do that was really helpful. And it helped me almost as much, if probably not more than her. Because when we take the breath, we breathe, right? Signals to our body, to our brain. Okay, we're safe. We're all right. If we have a moment, we can breathe. We're not in immediate danger. We don't need to be running. We can calm that fight or flight instinct. And then we can, okay, now what's going on? What can I do? Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about, sometimes we do need to just let ourselves have a few minutes to go through all the things that could possibly go wrong, right? I know I've talked about before, but there's that exercise where they say, okay, well, if everything goes wrong, then what happens? And you go through and you write down all of the things that could go wrong. If I open this business and it fails, then this happens. And then the worst thing that could happen is this, and then that. And what would be worse than that? What would be worse than that? And then how would I react to this thing? I know when I was trying to do things, it was like, oh, the worst possible thing was that I would end up completely broke and I'd have to move back in with my mom in my little hometown in the middle of nowhere, which would not have been my first choice, or second or third. But then it was like, okay, but then if that happens, then what am I going to do? And how am I going to get out of that? So sometimes there is a way of letting yourself, I don't know if panic is the right word, but explore the possibility of things not going well so that you can see, okay, whatever happens, whatever comes up, I can handle this. And we calmly panic, I guess you could say. So it's not so much that we panic and we don't breathe and whatever, we freak out. But we say, okay, all right, fear, I'm giving you a moment. You tell me all the things that you think are going to actually happen or that could go wrong. And we're going to talk about them. And then we're going to see how valid they are, right? Because your fear is also just trying to tell you something. Your fear, your brain, and that fear part of your brain is just trying to give you information, trying to help you stay alive. Being like, okay, this is dangerous. This is not where we want to be. This is new. We don't know what's going to happen here. And it's trying to find things to find possible dangers so that it can help you avoid that possible danger. So give it a minute. Sometimes it's very helpful to give your fear a minute, just a minute or two, not a lot. You can't let it run wild, but give it a minute or two to say, okay, this is what's going to happen. This is what I'm afraid of. This is what could possibly go wrong. And then once we have done that, then we can say, okay, yes, maybe we fall down, but then we get back up. Maybe it's embarrassing, but is that going to kill us? No, most people probably aren't going to be paying attention. Those type of a thing. And it can be really helpful. So once we've taken a deep breath, right? Like I said, sometimes the really big, small brave is that we take a deep breath and we don't panic. And we take the deep breath, we regulate our nervous system, and then we start looking for some sort of solution. Now, as you are looking for these solutions, there's just a couple things I want to say about this that have kind of been on my mind lately. The first thing I want you to remember is that there's no such thing as a right answer 90% of the time. Okay? A lot of times we're looking for the correct answer. We're looking for the solution. And what we need to be looking for is a right answer, is a solution. Because a lot of times there is more than one way to do pretty much anything. And a lot of times one way is not better than the other. It's just different. And it doesn't matter which one you find and which one you do. You just find a solution. So stop fretting about finding the right one, the right answer, and just find one that works. Stop worrying about it. And then once you have made that decision, once you have found that solution, make it the right solution. Make it the right decision. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to work. And also remember that done is better than perfect, because perfect does not exist. Okay? Done is better than perfect because perfect doesn't exist. The only way that I would say that perfect does exist is to embrace the imperfections of the day-to-day or the event or whatever it is. Perfect, as in everything is absolutely 100% the way that it is supposed to, doesn't actually exist. Perfect comes when we learn to embrace the chaos and we learn to laugh at things when they go wrong and find joy no matter what happens. That's where perfect actually comes in. And kind of along with those two things, I was thinking about an experience I had a couple years ago. I was trying to make a living as a writer. And in the middle of all of this, I had a computer that was fairly new. Was like old enough to be out of warranty, but new enough to but just barely, right? And all of a sudden one day, the middle row of my keyboard stopped working. Just stopped working. And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to, you think, oh, well, it's not that, you're looking at the letters individually and you think, oh, they're not all that important. If you've ever tried to type something without the middle row of the keyboard, it's impossible. You think, oh, there's only one vowel. It's no big deal. But a third of the letters are there. And I was really I didn't have any money at the time. I didn't have money to fix the computer. I didn't have money to replace the computer. I was kind of freaking out a little bit. I freaked out a lot. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I did have a touch screen, so I was able to do some things that way. And then in kind of some of the brainstorming and what do we do about this? My brother-in-law's like, well, I think my mom has an extra keyboard from her computer and we can so he got that for me and I borrowed one and one, plugged in. And then of course that didn't last too long because one of the dogs ate the cord. But what ended up being the solution that I found for this particular problem was I just got a wireless keyboard with the little thing you plug in. to the USB port on your computer. And I have been using a wireless keyboard for the last 3-4 years on this computer because my keyboard doesn't work. It was really hard at the time to not just completely freak out and think everything was over because I didn't have the money to replace the $700 computer. I didn't. But the solution that I found, was it the only solution? Not really, but it was a solution, and it has worked for the last couple of years. It ended up being a $15, $20 solution because of a lightning deal on Amazon. But it was a $15 solution to a $700 problem. And we can find those if we will take a breath, if we will not panic, and we will just allow ourselves some time to think and process and figure it out. If we realize that we don't need to quit just because we're afraid. If just because the fear and the panic show up doesn't mean we have to open the door, doesn't mean we have to invite them in, doesn't mean they get to take over the show. All the best things in life, I would say, are on the other side of fear. And a lot of times, doing the thing is not nearly as difficult as the thought of doing the thing, right? I recently rewatched a video from Will Smith about talking about his experience skydiving and talking about how he was like freaking out up to the point. He says up to the point of jumping out of the plane, there was no danger, but he was kind of panicking. And then he said that at the moment of maximum danger was minimum fear. And once he jumped out of that plane, he's like, it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. And I think that if we can keep ourselves from panicking, if we can breathe through and keep our brain in a thinking space, then we can actually get to the other side of fear, because all of the best things in life are on the other side of fear. When we realize that, okay, this is scary, but I'm awesome and I'm amazing and I can handle scary things and I can get to the other side and I can be amazing and awesome and wonderful. I don't have to let fear win. And I know that the world is kind of crazy. Not kind of. The world is straight up crazy. Things are crazy. Things are hard. Things are chaotic. And it is very easy, I think, to let the fear win. It is very easy to just start panicking over anything and everything. And to pick up on other people's panic, to pick it up, to start carrying it as your own. Their worries, their fears. But remember, brave is not always big. Brave is not always crazy, loud. Sometimes it is quiet and it is soft. It is just taking a deep breath. It is doing those things that you know are going to regulate your nervous system, starting with breathing. It seems simple and it seems like it's too easy. There's no way it can work. It's too simple. But sometimes the best answer is actually the simple, easy one. The most effective one. So this week, when things come up, or next week when things come up and you want to panic, whether it is the state of the world or state of your finances or a state of a relationship, or for no reason, for whatever reason, you just feel like you're being chased by bears, take a minute, take a breath. Realize you don't have to panic. You don't have to let that in. You can do this. You're amazing and you're wonderful. And you have survived 100% of the hard days so far. And you can survive this one as well. Remember that you are brave. You are amazing and you are wonderful. You've got this. You're fantastic. Love you. Have a wonderful day.